Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Mastering the Business of Yoga. I am super excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. Today on the podcast, we have a returning guest, Brit Kolo. If that name is familiar, then maybe you listened to the episode that we did together back in June 2019. And I just felt really aligned when Brit and I met. We talked all about marketing for your personality type back in June of 2019. And we're both ENFJs with Myers-Briggs. So we really got to vibe off that, which was super fun. We'll make sure that we have a link for that in the show notes so that you guys can check that out. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Brit before we dive in with her. She is the creator of Marketing Personality Type Framework at marketingpersonalities.com and the host of the Marketing Personalities podcast. Through her framework designed to match you with your best marketing strategy based on your Myers-Briggs personality type, she's here to shake up your approach to marketing and inspire you to grow your business in a feel-good way. Meet Brit and get ready to go deep. Find your true self and grow that business of yours without feeling fake and salesy at marketingpersonalities.com. And I am all about this. I think marketing is super key and super important for our businesses, but so often we just get caught up in this, like, I have to do this or I should do this. And we're just going to talk about how you don't need to do that and how you can really use who you are and your personality to align with your business. So I'm super excited to dive in. Before we do that, though, I just wanted to give a little shout out to the sponsor of this week's episode, Offering Tree. We're going to talk more about Offering Tree later on in the episode. But if you are looking for software that also might align with your marketing, I think Offering Tree is a really awesome option. And if you want to check them out while you're listening, before you hear more, you can check them out at offeringtree.com/MBOM. All right, let's dive in. Brit, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to connect with you again. I feel like it's been way too long. I've been following you through your newsletter and social media, podcasts, all that good stuff. But maybe let's start by just doing a quick overview of what you've been up to over the last 3 years.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I can't believe it's been 3 years, almost 3 years since I was on the podcast. That number just boggles my mind. Yeah, so the last 3 years have been interesting. So long story short, I had a baby in 2021, early 2021. Thought I was going to, take 3 months off. That's, just kind of assume. I had never... Listeners, just FYI, this is my first baby, first rodeo here. Thought I was going to take 3 months off, ended up taking 12 months off completely. And so I came back online in January 2022. And so here we are. I've been back in the swing of things for the most part, not full time, still just doing kind of a part-time situation here for Marketing Personalities, and I have a couple contract clients. I've been doing that for a couple months now, but yeah, the last 3 years have been kind of crazy, but that's for me personally. But the beauty of having an online business that sells digital products and has a ton of content already online is that my business never really went away. I just wasn't front and center. I wasn't doing social media. I wasn't sending weekly emails. I wasn't doing podcast interviews for, about a year and a half, really. But my business is still there. Marketingpersonalities.com, still selling stuff, still helping people with my content, my previous content. So, and now I'm back online.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's awesome. We were talking before we started recording just about motherhood and that type of thing, since you came back online pretty much as I went offline for maternity leave. because my baby was born pretty much like mid-February approximately. And I was due earlier than that. She was quite late. So I decided to go offline like in January just to give myself some time. And just in case, I wanted to be prepared in case she came early, and jokes on me that she was 8 days late, but no regrets. So it's really awesome to connect with somebody else who's kind of just really in like the same phase of business in a number of ways, and same phase of life. And I want to dive into just this idea of like, how do we fall in love with our business again? And I think that this is really relevant, like certainly to myself, especially after taking time off. I'd be curious to know if maybe relevant to you as well, with you taking time off as well. And I think with a lot of people just going through these big pivots through the pandemic and being through this like roller coaster ride of government regulations and online, offline, in studio restrictions, et cetera, it can kind of get a little bit like you're kind of a little over it in some ways. And then also maybe even if you weren't hit so much by that, sometimes just like the day-to-day grind can feel a little bit like, hey, why am I doing this? I don't really, have that why, or I don't love it so much. So maybe we can dive into a little bit of that.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that we have a space to have this conversation, just you and I. I mean, this is a conversation I just want to have. And the fact that it's being recorded and other people get to listen in, great. But I feel fulfilled already that you and I get to have this conversation. Because you and I have gone through, major life change, maybe one of the biggest of our lives, right? In the last couple of years. You are right in the middle of it, right? So, but also, even if as a listener, even if you haven't had this major life change of bringing in a new human into the world, all of our lives have changed so much in the last couple of years. I don't care who you are, like your life has changed. You've probably had moments where you've really considered, what am I doing? Like, what am I actually doing here? And that can, I don't know about you, but it certainly did for me, bring up questions of, do I want to be running this business? Is this what I want to be doing? And very similar to when I used to work in corporate and I started to have these questions of like, is this really what I want to be doing? I kind of feel like I want to start a business. I think I have the chops for it. These I don't want to over dramatize it, but these existential questions, what am I doing here? What do I want to be doing here? And when those questions start to come in, I think there have been, at least for me, there have been moments of doubt, maybe like, do I still like this business? If I'm being like really real, like, do I still like this? Do I want to do this? There are parts of this thing that I've built that I'm not super into. And that has, being willing to ask those questions. I mean, I was offline, not just for the 12 months of maternity leave, but also prior to that, I had a tough, rough pregnancy. Nothing high risk, but I hand raised, like, I'm just going to tell you right now, I did not enjoy being pregnant. Did not enjoy it. Okay. And I found it really, really difficult to work while I was pregnant. And so I was offline for a while, and I was eventually I got to the point where I was willing to ask myself the question, do I want to go back to marketing personalities? Do I want to continue with this? And if I do, what might need to change? I recognized that the way that it had been working was not going to be the way that it worked as I moved forward, as I potentially stepped back into it. And those questions can kind of be, well, they were for me, they were super scary. But I started asking myself the questions like you've asked me. How do I step back into this business and really truly love it? And I see that type of question being asked all around me in different ways. And it comes down to the heart of like, how do I fall back in love with my business again? with changes that have happened in my life, changes that have happened in the world, this existential questioning that we've all gone through. How do I love my business again? How do I make sure that when I wake up and I choose to sit down at my laptop or go into the office or go into the studio, how do I love that again? I for sure did before. And I know there's still a kernel of that somewhere. How do I fall back in love? And I think for me, and I'm curious to hear from you too, Amanda, for me, I had to get really, really real about the parts of the business that were still working for me, that I was still engaged with and excited for, and the parts of it that I was just honestly not into anymore. And I mean, if you know it, listeners, if you know me, I'm the marketing personalities girl. Like, I'm all about aligning your business and your marketing strategy to who you are, identifying what feels really good and just forgetting about the rest. Maybe not forgetting about it, but I always say, if it doesn't feel good for you to do, eliminate it or delegate it, right? So that's the sign I hold up. And yet still I walked back into my business asking the question, okay, I feel like the way I used to do this does not work for me anymore. So I got to find a way to eliminate and delegate the things that no longer feel good for me so I can be in love with this business again enough to really listen. I don't do anything half-assed. I just don't. If you know me in real life, you know, like I am all in or I am all out. And that's true for that's 100,000% true for my business. So I had to do that eliminate and delegate process as well as I came back in. And I think for me, to fall back in love with your business, it requires you to be open to the things that aren't working for you anymore and be really, really real about that. There's so many shoulds. There are so many shoulds. Like, well, I did that before, so I should be able to do that. No. You got to get really real about what feels good for you and what doesn't, and then be willing to eliminate and or delegate that which does not feel good for you so you can truly love what you're doing. That's for marketing, and it's also for all of your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I can relate to so much of what you just said. And I feel like I've gone through so many phases with this. Like, I think the first kind of phase for me, I can't remember exactly when it happened. I think it was like sometime in 2019. I was just like feeling so overwhelmed by everything I was doing. And I feel like overwhelm is one of those things that kind of brings resentment into our business, which means we're not really in love with what we're doing. And I met with somebody who is specializing in recruitment. And she was like, I think that bringing somebody in would be really helpful for you. And what she kind of assigned me as homework was identify the things that like really don't bring you joy in your business that you could hire somebody else to do. And hiring somebody to edit my podcast and to come on like 5 hours a week to help with social media and some of that stuff, like helping with my Facebook group. All of a sudden I was like, oh, I like trained them and passed these things off, and I put trust in other people to do these things. And I felt that kind of like reinvigoration of my business again. And then pandemic hit soon after that. And part of my business is working with yoga teachers and studio owners. And one of the studio clients that I had just was hit so hard. They're in Canada. Canada went through so many crazy like lockdowns and rules and regulations. And I just found that so stressful to be a part of. And I had a hard time separating like Amanda from Amanda who works with the studio and was carrying that stress pretty much constantly, even though it wasn't my business, but a business that I supported and that I wanted to see through this thing. And that was one of the things that obviously going on maternity leave, I let go of. And I really saw like, this has not been working for a while. And I mean, that was basically like, I stuck through it for like some heavy moments for like almost 2 years. And now that I've been able to step away from that, I'm like, okay, that was really like not bringing me joy in my business. And I think, there's probably ways to do this without taking a maternity leave, but I feel like just being able to fully step away has been so helpful to kind of look at like, like you said, like what's working, what's not, what's bringing me joy, what's not bringing me joy. And then just having like more limited time. And I don't want to be working in the same capacity I was before, because then I don't have time, to spend with my baby girl. And she's my priority right now. So it's really looking at like, okay, if I have X hours per week, what do I want to spend my time doing? What's bringing me joy? And I think I even got to the point where just getting burnout with even doing podcast interviews and finding myself not that engaged with some of them. And so one of my intentions with coming back with interviews is like, I'm only interviewing people that is like a hell yes for me, and not just like, oh, this is probably an interesting interview to somebody. It doesn't really matter, right? Like it needs to be interesting to me first and foremost. And I think making those changes will hopefully, and so far is feeling good, but will hopefully, as I kind of, get back into work a little bit more, just continue to allow the business to feel good, because it has to, I think.
Yeah.
And, obviously there's things that we need to do because we need to pay our rent and we need to buy food. And, there's that like need to make a living type thing. But I think there's also like outside of that, can you look at like what money's coming in, what clients are coming in, what things you're doing that are kind of that like, hell yes, or I'm doing this because I need the finances with this, or I'm just saying yes because I should, like you said, like we should on ourselves so hard.
Yeah. And you know what? That makes such a great point that I don't want to skip over. I can see how it might be easy for someone to be like, oh yeah, that's cute. Like do only what feels good. Yeah. Well, you know what? I need this to work because I need to pay my bills and I need to feed my family. Hear me when I say, me too.
Me three.
Me too. Yeah. Me too.
This house is not free.
Nope. Not free to live here. And eat. So I certainly don't want to make it seem like let's just do what feels good, eliminate and delegate the rest. And just because it's fun. I feel the weight and the gravity of making those decisions as well. And that's why I kind of want to stand up out of my office chair and applaud you for making those types of decisions. And I want to do that for everyone listening who's made those really brave and courageous decisions to continue to align with your business. I think I started this business back in, my first business in 2016. I feel like I was a kid, I was a total kid back then. And I think about if I had not been willing to change since 2016, I'd be still running a business that I did not want to run. I mean, there have been so many pivots and changes and evolutions in my business because there's been so many pivots and changes and evolutions in me. And if our businesses don't afford us that kind of realignment, why are we even running it? I mean, honestly, if you're not willing to make those seriously brave and courageous decisions to realign your business to your life, just go get a job. Because that's what a job is. A job is like there for stability, but not necessarily there for flexibility. And I think if you're running your own business, you want both. You want it all. You're one of those crazy ass people who wants it all. And I get you. I get you. The world out there doesn't really get you because most people are like, I have to prioritize stability over flexibility. And those of us who are in this conversation and listening to it, and you have built a business, you're like, no, but I want both of those things. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to champion that and cheer you on and say, you are the brave one. You are the courageous one, and you can get everything you want but you're going to have to make those brave and courageous decisions. And sometimes that looks like choosing what feels best to you. If you really want stability, flexibility, and something that feels aligned and that you're in love with and want to do every single day. So yeah, it's brave and courageous to make these decisions, not just to have your own business, but also to, I guess especially to build that business and allow it to feel great and aligned and something you're in love with. And you got to give yourself permission to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's hard.
It for sure is. For us, for you and I, our most recent change has maybe for better or for worse been forced upon us. Right. Like I don't know about you, but I know some of the changes that I've gone through. It's not necessarily that I chose them, but I've changed as a human simply because I birthed another human, right?
Yeah.
And I just feel like I'm kind of on this crazy ride of like dealing with that a lot of times. And then other times, there have been changes that I've allowed in my business, not because of some massive force of nature, but upon me, but because I was willing to make those decisions of saying, wait, this doesn't really work for me. I get that it works for other people. I get that other people can do it this way, but that does not work for me. I don't like this. And so whether you've had a baby and had this major life change, or you're just feeling this unease of like, wait, I don't think I like this anymore. I know I built it, but I don't really like this anymore. Give yourself permission to change. I can't really give you permission. You can give yourself permission, though, to change and evolve and let your business change and evolve with you.
Hey, you a teacher, I have a question for you. Are you teaching yoga online? I'm a big fan of online yoga because it makes wellness more accessible for everyone. And it means that your yoga business is no longer limited by geography, which can make a big difference in how you can grow and reaching your ideal clients. That's one of the reasons I'm so excited to share Offering Tree with you today. Offering Tree is an online software and website builder that makes it really easy to teach online. First of all, Offering Tree automatically integrates with Zoom. No more copy and pasting links. Hallelujah. And this is really cool. When you post your schedule on Offering Tree, it will automatically show the correct time zone to anyone looking at your website. No more doing automatic time zone conversions in your head. I know that this is such a pain in the butt, especially around daylight savings time. If you're looking for a simpler and easier way to teach online, try Offering Tree. Use my link offeringtree.com/MBOM for 50% off the first 3 months. Once again, that's offeringtree.com/MBOM for your special discount. All right, now back to the episode. Yeah, definitely. And I think this is a good segue into like how personality types can be weaved into this. But before we get there, I just wanted to comment on just with the, like, I really relate to the like stability aspect. And I think, just going back to that yoga studio example, like there was certainly a part of me that felt like, hey, I'm like on the Titanic right now. We've been hit by an iceberg. Like, I'm not going to be the first one on a lifeboat. Like, I can't leave this business that I've been supporting for so long that feels like so intimate to me. Like, there was definitely an emotional part of it. But I think, there's also this, like, when you do the numbers and you look at one of your biggest clients going away, there's also fear, right? And there's fear when you're like, oh, well, I'm carrying another little human inside of me and the world is really crazy. And there's, lots of things going on. And I definitely feel like for me, like I kind of needed that push of like, hey, I need to step away because I'm giving birth and I need to be offline to have this baby and to take care of her and stuff. But I think just knowing like if there's anyone out there who's like feeling like maybe there's a client who pays them well and they need that money, but it's not feeling aligned. Like, I think when we can let that stuff go, you open up so much more space for the things that are aligned for you. Yeah. And I know that's scary because I just have gone through that. And I've really had to work with myself through that because it's terrifying to think of giving up, a big chunk of your income, especially in these crazy times. But I really do believe like the work we do is very energetic. And when you are kind of like clogging up your time and your space with something that's not energetically aligned, then you're not opening the door for things that are. And if
1,000.
you can kind of go into it with that mindset, like the clients that are right for you will come.
Absolutely.
And we have to do this in like, whatever way is best for us, depending on our financial situation. Like for me to take time off, it was, okay, I need to save part of my income through my whole pregnancy because I know I'm not going to be making as much once I go offline. How can I set myself up to continue my podcast while I'm offline, et cetera, et cetera. So there's definitely factors that go into it, but just wanted to comment on that. Like, I fully get that fear and that, desire for stability. But if something's really not feeling good, I think it's really important to look at, can I step away from that and make space for something that might be more aligned for me without that fear of like the ship's going down?
Yeah. You make a great point. I talk a lot about this in my marketing focused content. And also this relates to everything in business and subsequently everything in life. The energy you put out is the energy you get back. And the way I say that in marketing is when you feel good, your audience feels good. And that's true, right? You've felt this. You've watched a YouTube video before where you're like, where you feel, you can tell that the person making that video does not feel good in front of the camera. And you're like, I don't really want to watch this, right? When you don't feel good, your audience is naturally repelled because they feel what you feel. And the opposite is true. When you feel good, your audience feels good. I feel amazing behind a mic. I'm an ENFJ, Myers-Briggs personality type. I feel so good right now. Like sitting in my office chair, I got this mic, recording button is on. I feel great, right? Listener, can you tell? Can you tell I kind of feel good right now? Like and I don't have to try at that. I'm not trying right now. And it's not because I have a ton of practice. Actually, I haven't recorded a podcast interview in months. So I was a little like, I might be a little rusty. But because this is just naturally where I feel good, you feel that, audience member, you do. And so I talk about that in marketing related content all the time. When you feel good, your audience feels good. Same thing goes in your business, right? When you're feeling good about what you're doing, it naturally attracts the opportunities, the people, the PR, the whatever. It naturally attracts abundance to you. But when you're feeling out of alignment, burnt out, unsure, a lot of anxiety, you're holding on to something, something in your business, a client or a project or whatever that like you really don't want to do, but you feel like you have to, that's going to block stuff. That's going to block great things because your energy field is so clogged up with this, with this, whatever it is, anxiety, negativity, fear, whatever it is. And so I don't want to get too energetically woo-woo, although your audience is probably totally into it. But I sense that you understand and your audience understands what I'm talking about. But we don't always give this airtime, even in our own minds. We believe this, we get it. But when we're in the day-to-day, it's so easy to just justify, like, just keep going, like this client, they're a total headache, but I got to keep it because I got to pay this bill. Blah, 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 blah. Hey, here's your permission slip to pause, take a second, and really consider what the energy looks like in your business right now. Is it what you want it to be? Is it really, really great? Or is it not? And that'll show you the type of energies you're attracting back into the business. So there's your little permission to just pause. I mean, Amanda and I had a great reason to pause. I paused for 12 months. And that was a really great reason. You don't have to pause for even a month. You could pause for a couple of days with the intention to really consider what's going on here. What's the energy like? That'll give you so many answers that you're looking for. If you want to fall back in love with your business, or maybe you even just have an inkling that something's kind of off, give yourself a pause. Give yourself a couple days and see what you're really attracting.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think had I done that prior to maternity leave, I think some like interesting things probably would have been unearthed. And, take it from me. Like I totally hear that it's hard. Like it's hard when you're go, go, go. And it's hard when you're busy, and you don't want to like complain when you're busy either. Cause it's like, that's a blessing too, to be busy in your business, but are you busy in the right way? And I think just coming back to this idea of shoulds, because there's a million shoulds in business, there's a million shoulds in marketing. Everyone's trying to teach you all the things that you can do. And I think, even this podcast, like there's a lot of people talking about different things to do within your business. And one thing I always try to, encourage people is like, we run heart-centered businesses as yoga teachers and yoga studio owners, and we need to pass it through that heart space and say, does this feel right for me? But I think we also have these tools like, our Myers-Briggs personality to kind of help us along with that. So maybe we can talk a little bit about how like understanding yourself and your personality can actually help you go in the right direction with, finding these like hell yeses and then saying no and trusting your intuition when it feels like a no.
Absolutely. Let's dig into that. Okay. So I will be the first to say, personality type assessments, typing in general, whether it's Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or passion profiles or anything. These are tools. They're not the end all be all. And you and your audience knows this probably better than any audience I've ever spoken to. You are the end all be all. You are the one that gets to make the decision, and you get to tap into your intuition and know and really, really know what's right for you and what's not, what feels good for you and what's not. Now, I've built marketingpersonalities.com to be a tool to help you get closer to understanding what feels good and what doesn't, what feels right and what doesn't in your marketing strategy. So this is I find a really, really great step to finding out what your best marketing strategy is, what that includes, what that doesn't include, what does that mean for your content strategy, what does that mean for your social media strategy. And I use the Myers-Briggs type indicator to give us that first step. And eventually, and you'll see, I mean, if you read my content, if you listen to my podcast, there's so often a caveat where I say, okay, this is great. This gives you an idea based on your Myers-Briggs type, what your marketing strategy could include. Still gut check it. That's an easy way to say it. That's people know what I mean. Gut check. Check it through your intuition. Run it through your heart space, right? Like, see what your stalkers feel about that. And really ask yourself, how does this feel? But at the end of the day, the point here is to build a marketing strategy that you feel amazing about, so your audience can feel amazing about it too. And you can attract not everybody, not anybody, but the perfect ideal people to your business.
I love that. And I feel like that's like another permission slip, or at least like kind of how I felt when we first connected a couple of years ago. Like I remember talking about just something specific to ENFJs and being like, oh, it makes so much sense. And it's kind of funny because like in theory, I shouldn't need a permission slip to say, hey, this type of marketing doesn't feel good for me. Yet I think we're just constantly bombarded by like seeing people succeed in these ways. And then you're like, oh, well, I should do that then because I want a successful business. But just because somebody else did something one way and had really good success doesn't necessarily mean that way is for us. And I think I'm slowly starting to see more and more of this in just like, the social media spaces and that type of thing, of people saying like, hey, like I don't like making reels, so I'm not going to. Like, just because that's what Instagram's favoring with the algorithm doesn't mean you have to do it. And I think that there's just kind of this like pressure where you can almost like beat yourself up over the things you're not doing and you're resisting them. And we're spending so much mental energy trying to convince ourselves that these things we should be doing, when it's like, what if you just really leaned into like who you are and what you're good at and served your clients in that way? Because then that comes back to that alignment in your business, bringing joy back into your business, and your people, like we've talked about, are going to be attracted to that, right? Because you're showing up as a different person instead of forcing yourself to like, I'm just going to use reels as an example. And if anyone's listening, you love reels, 100%, you do you.
Absolutely.
But if, pointing at the screen or dancing or doing voiceovers is like something that just makes you kind of cringe inside, like that's okay. You don't have to do that. And if that makes you like, you wake up in the morning with ideas and that like lights you up, cool, lean into that. It's like figuring out for us what's working, what's not, and kind of, sure, we can take suggestions from, marketing experts or sales experts or business experts about what's possible. But I think we really need to like lean into who we are and find that alignment, because that's going to be like, how we find that joy in our business.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't help just listening to you say that. And I've had this vision internally for ever since I started Marketing Personalities, since the idea downloaded into my head, into my whole being, it felt like, I've had this vision of where the kind of the story, the rhetoric around starting a business is that it's super hard, and a lot of people don't make it. And I have this vision where these people who want to start their business, they have a real solid mission behind why they want to do this, whatever it is. I have no idea. A yoga studio. It doesn't matter. Like, pick your example, pick your type of business. Doesn't matter. I have this vision where these people want to start their business, and instead of going down the route that so many of us have done and are in right now, where they find the guru and they think that the marketing guru, and they think they just need to build it exactly how they've done it. Nothing wrong with these gurus. They're helping a lot of people. But I also feel that so many people get hurt by this idea that if they can just do it the way that person did it, that marketing guru, that business guru, then they'll be a smashing success too. And unfortunately, that lie just permeates so many people's businesses for years, decades. Like, I've worked with people who've been in business for decades, and they're continuing to just struggle until they make the brave and courageous choice to do things the way that they want to do it, that allows them to feel good. And they finally are like, wait, this is working. Hang on a second. I feel good. And like, people are attracted to it. And it wasn't hard, I have this vision where more and more people build these businesses that they genuinely care about, that they're on mission to bring into the world. And instead of asking, well, how did other people do it? How can I play that game? They instead say, this thing needs to exist. This business needs to exist in the world. How am I wired to bring this into the world? What do I bring to the table? How can I do this in a way that feels good? And all of a sudden, the rhetoric and the story of like, oh, it's so hard, you got to do it this way, and it's out the window. It's like, no, because these business owners are doing it the way that feels good to them. I don't want to say that it's rainbows and butterflies and totally easy, but it's way easier than struggling for decades trying to get it off the ground, doing it this way and that way, just because they feel like they should. And that's how it's done. And that's how the algorithm is built and blah, blah, blah. I mean, what if we just did it the way that we feel best about? You know, what would that open up? I mean, I'm so intrigued by that question. I see the implications of it everywhere because I'm in it every day. I'm so hungry for this idea to I don't know, catch fire and really take hold and be the way that people approach business in the future. You know, maybe not just only based on Myers-Briggs. I don't really care about that, but it's more about paying attention to your internal environment and seeing like what actually aligns with me. I've been given this idea. I've been given this fire in my belly to build this thing. Now, instead of now going outside of myself to find all the answers, what would happen if I stayed inside? If I stayed internal and I asked myself, what's the best way for me to create this thing? I can't help but believe that's gonna totally change the world in so many ways. But there you go. There's a peek into my into my idealistic nature that is so a part of my personality. But if I would just say, if that at all appeals to the way you want to build business, like let's do it. Let's do it and let's share this with other people that want to build business that way too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really love that as well. And I think it's so beautiful that there's like so many people out there teaching different ways to do things. But I do feel that kind of like what you said, we can, maybe purchase a program or a course and we go through, maybe their methodology or their steps that worked for them. And then maybe we don't sell at our workshops or we don't sell at our programs or it doesn't work for us. And I think that it's really natural to kind of think like, oh, well, I'm not good enough, or there's something wrong with me, or, I'm not cut out for this. And then we give up, right? And I mean, we often only have so long to try these things because maybe we're running on savings or, we're working like part-time on the side. And it's a lot. It's a lot when you're building a business and you're turning a side hustle into something. I totally hear that. But I see a lot of people, I think, kind of give up because it's not working. And I like the idea of reframing it of like, what if it's not working, not because you're not good enough or because your business idea isn't good enough or because it's not a good idea, but because what you're trying to do is not really aligned with who you are and how you best show up in the world and for your clients. I wonder if that could switch the mentality for a lot of people of like, okay, I tried this person's way of filling programs. It's not working for me. Where's the resistance? Where's the tension? What's not feeling good about it? And is there a way that I can feel good about it? And I think for me, I've seen this so clearly with so many people I know and people I've worked with. And I think one example is like I'm a big fan of yoga teachers and studio owners having websites. Like that's something I teach. But one of my best yoga teacher friends didn't have a website, was doing really well supporting herself. She was like, I should probably have one. She created one. She's like, nobody's booking through it. It's not doing anything for me. All it is a burden to update and a cost. She shut it down. Her business is still thriving. It's better than ever. She has like a word of mouth way of doing things. She's got her online systems and payment systems set up, just not through a website. Like people don't come through her through a website. And I mean, she's been doing this since like, I don't know, 2012 or something, like 10 years. She supports herself completely on her own. And this is something that like, for me is like not something I would teach, yet she is living proof that it can work. And that feels good for her and it feels aligned for her. And having a website and trying to do it that way didn't feel aligned for her. And that's fine. Yeah. And that's like a beautiful example of like trusting your gut, heart checking things, trusting your intuition, and then saying like, well, maybe I can spend my time and energy and money in like a different way of marketing this business. And for her, it's like spending that time creating really great lesson plans, doing more trainings, making sure she's the best like yoga teacher, fitness coach that she can be. and then showing up in that way for her clients. And that's how she gets more people.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think the business gurus, the marketing gurus, they are doing amazing work. Part of my job is to simply filter and kind of, point specific personality types in the direction of those teachers that are teaching a specific strategy that is perfectly aligned with that personality type. So, for instance, let's see, Russell Brunson, big marketing guru, big business guru. I mean, I've gotten a lot out of his teachings. I know, although I will say, but I want to say this like in the most helpful way possible. Some personality types, if I were to send them to Russell Brunson to learn from, the core of the strategy that he's teaching is probably right on, but the way he's teaching it, the way he goes about it is really great for some personality types and really wrong for other personality types. Okay. That's just the way it is. I mean, if anyone is out there with such a huge ego to say, no, I have the answer for every single business owner out there. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because maybe it's a great answer, but it's not for everybody. So part of my job is to direct these specific personality types to the teachers that are going to be best for them. So it's just a matter of finding that way. Again, marketing personalities is a great tool to do that. And also you are a great tool. You yourself, you listener, you yourself have the answers. And so anytime you're finding a new teacher, a new methodology, a new book you hear about, yes, I do this too. I'm a very excitable person. When I find something new, I can get really excited about it. And then I need to take a pause and say, is this really for me? Is it really for me? Does it really align? Or am I getting kind of like shiny,
shiny object syndrome?
Yeah, shiny object syndrome, which I can totally do. So yeah, it's just, be willing to investigate those teachers and answer that hard question, that brave and courageous question. Is this right for me? And it's okay to say, nah, it's not. Like that's okay. You're not missing out. You're not, if anything, you're furthering your progress. You're becoming more successful every time you say, nah, that's not really for me. Because then that opens up space for the thing that is for you and that is aligned for you. So you can truly be in love with your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think this is just going back to the Reels example was like really very true to my own life. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because like I have a personal Instagram and a business Instagram. And I've just recently, like since having the baby, had a lot of fun like putting together some Reels of like baby photos and finding cute music and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But for my business, I mean, I resisted it for so long. And then I made it goal like week after week. It's a goal to make a reel. It's the goal to make a reel. I don't have any ideas. What are ideas? I got my assistant to research some ideas of like what people were doing that I didn't, that maybe would be like in line with me. And finally I was just like, why am I wasting time and energy on this when I'm just not doing it? Mm-hmm. I'm not that interested in doing it. And if Instagram wants to ding me for that, like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to like pull my hair out trying to do this just so that I can get more likes and follows on Instagram. It's just not worth it for me. And I think that there's a million examples that you and I could probably go through for our own businesses like this. And then listeners can probably think of so many from their own lives as well. And I think that that's like, just like a real example of like, even though I know this, it's like, I still have to work with this, and it sometimes takes time for me to be like, okay, just because it's a trend or just because it might be beneficial to my business doesn't mean it's necessarily right for me. And again, coming back to that energetic, similar with your clients, it's like, as soon as I let go of this idea of like, I need to do this, I opened up space to be creative in other ways.
Yes. Amen. Exactly. I love it.
Amazing. Do you have this conversation's been awesome and I could keep you all day, but I want to get ready to wrap up. Do you have any other just tips or thoughts that you want to leave listeners with kind of around this topic today?
And I feel like we hit on so much of it. If anything, I would love to encourage your listeners to be willing to ask the question. Well, actually, it's really more about like, be willing to take a pause. Whether you've been forced into the pause or not, like be willing to take a pause and ask yourself, what's feeling good about this right now? What's not? And then take that a step further and be willing to say no to some things. Be willing to change. Be willing to allow your business to change with you, because we're always evolving. We must be, right? Like if you aren't changing, and therefore if your business isn't changing, like what are you doing? I mean, it's what we're here for, right? So permission to pause, permission to ask yourself those hard questions, and should you need guidance or crave guidance around answering these questions in an aligned way and finding support to do things in an aligned way. Because again, these are not easy questions to answer, and they're definitely not always easy questions to follow through on once you get your answer. If you need support, I know that Amanda's here to support you, and I'm here to support you as well. So we're doing it in our own way, and it's exciting, and it's sometimes scary, and we're in it together. So I encourage you to step into that and see where it takes you.
Beautiful. I love that. And I think that's the perfect place to leave off for now. I'm sure we'll have another conversation in the future. I already feel that there's something brewing in the future for us.
I love it.
Can you share with listeners where they can go to find you?
Yeah, it's super easy, everybody. It's marketingpersonalities.com. That's where you can find everything.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, Brit. It's been really awesome reconnecting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomeyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomeyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.